We have one more speaker this evening. You've met her husband. She came in as a pinch hitter tonight, which was awesome because we had somebody canceled. I guess the Moscow weather was too bad for them. So Shawn Cernik, again, part of this Appleseed project, will really strongly invite you to check it out. She's going to read to us a letter, a thank you to the aforementioned John Parker that I think is really touching, and I've heard her read it before, and she does a great job with it. So please put your hands together for our last speaker this afternoon and welcome Shawn Cernik.
Two years ago, the Arctic Patriot, a blogger, knew his heritage, just as we hope that you will know your heritage today. He wrote a thank you letter to Captain John Parker, of which I would love to read it and have the honor to read it. Captain Parker, I know you're long since in the grave. Nevertheless, I want to thank you for that crazy, defiant, insane act of pointless resistance you committed all those years ago. I want to thank you for standing in defiance of the most powerful military force known to man, alone with so few of your townsmen. That act alone, that resistance, likely was enough in itself to see you arrested, your life destroyed. You had to know you didn't stand a chance against British bayonets and musketry. And you couldn't have possibly known what would soon transpire because of the pure steel you displayed that day. You stood sick with the illness that would bring you to death, staring down the British Empire. And you and your men did not falter. How fast and hard your heart must have beat. How sweaty your palms. How dry your mouth, as you showed a defiant and brave front to the enemy and to your men. And could you have known? You and your men stood, knowing the steel that was in front of you was poised to crush you. Could you have known what would happen after your stand? Would you be crushed and abandoned by your countrymen after your stand? Would it be in vain? Would your former friends and militiamen scurry to be distanced from your memory? Would your wives hate you for standing and dying for this one thing, this concept, this freedom? Could you have known? You couldn't have known. Some things just have to be done, even if you don't just know. Did you know that day how many would come to your aid? Did you know that you would send the British, your countrymen, into a rout, bloodied and dying? Did you ever dream in the years before that it would come to this? Did you hold out hope until that last second that things would change? What made you stand? What made you defy law and order, king and country, that made you so enraged and galvanized that finally you said, "No more," and stood? What made you finally stand and take aim at the uniform you once wore? You were no stranger to the hell of war, yet you left your farm and your job behind to lay your life down as a sacrifice. What made you leave your wife and your home, sick and dying, to stand for this thing that no one could touch, this idea? What did your wife Lydia think? She knew, didn't she? Even before you picked up your gun, she knew what you would do. It was part of who you were. Perhaps she knew before you did. You couldn't not do what you did. Then they came. After the alerts and the alarms of the night before, there they were suddenly within the town. There they were, so close. That's all it always is, though, isn't it? All the ideas, the bantering, the theorizing, the decisions, they all came to a halt in that second. And it was too late to think, too late to debate, too late to decide. There they were. As you watched, the scene devolved and grew tense. You knew what was coming. It was inevitable. Your words calmed and steeled the men, letting them stand. You knew what was coming. They were boys and men from all walks of life. You had been a man of war. Was it a game to them up until the red columns appeared? You knew, though, didn't you? But just for a second, toward the end, did you think and hold out hope that it would not explode? Did you hope and pray the inevitable would not come? Then it came. You saw the sun rising, glinting off the dew in the grass. You heard the morning birds singing as if nothing was amiss. You might have noticed the clouds above or the familiar sights and smells of the town in that moment. That moment that is before. When all of your senses explode and bring the earth into infinite focus and awareness that has to be experienced to be known, the moment before violence. In that moment, you knew. Then it came. Did you hear the shot heard around the world? Was it loud and clear? Or were your senses overwhelmed in that chaotic second when the world erupted into flame and fire and the world began to turn upside down? All the fear and trepidation of the day, all the anxiety, released finally in a cataclysmic blast that changed everything. You watched as your men were shot down, unable to stop it all or help it all. You watched as your cousin was impaled on the bayonet of a countryman, slain with cold British steel. After it all, when the quiet came, interrupted only by the moans of the dying, when the victorious huzzahs to the king faded and the marching columns left, you could have walked away. You did not. You could have walked away once again to rest in the arms of your wife, sick with the disease that would be your end. You did not. You could have gone back to your Lydia and lived the remainder of it well. Why not, Captain Parker? Why not, John? You gathered those who were left, and you did not run from the army that crushed you. No, instead you pursued it and claimed your Parker's revenge. You came, you stood, you led, and you returned. You won. You knew that, didn't you? Or did you? You died before the war was over from the affliction that plagued you that day, all those years ago. But that day and forever, you won. I want to thank you, John, for what you did, for standing against your countrymen, for leading your men as you did, for taking the flame and fire and musketry. I want to thank you as well for coming back, for coming back and fighting. Yes, for slaying your countrymen, although for the moment the shots were fired, they were forevermore not your countrymen. That morning you stood. You fought for something you could not touch, something you could not see, something you would never see. This idea, this thing, this liberty. You would never know it, yet you fought. That morning you stood. I pray that like you, we may stand, whether in peace or in strife, because if we stand like you, no matter what, we've won like you. Thank you, John Parker.
I saw that ball of thermonuclear something in the sky, and I was thinking, North Korea, no. It's the sun. It's so weird. Okay, so just a couple quick announcements, and then I'll send you on your merry way to enjoy your Friday. For those of you who really were interested in the history today, and I hope you really were, there is a book that's called Paul Revere's Ride. It is by David Hackett Fisher. We will post this on our website. If you enjoyed hearing about the history of April 19th, go to Amazon and buy it. It's going to be a great addition for your family's library. Thank you very much to the Palouse Liberty Project, to John Lafer, to Tom Wilbur, to Sue Herdering that helped us put this on today. Thank you very much to Keeney Brothers Music for supplying our amplification system today at no charge. We really appreciate that so much. Thanks to the guys from the Palouse Militia. If you have questions about our local militia unit, they are there to answer your questions for you. Most importantly, we can have that discussion later. Got to be at least one idiot in every crowd. That's great. What's that? Thank you for coming out. We appreciate it so much. I mean, this is the kind of noise that we do have to talk over, and the kind of things that we do have to overcome as we do this. The bottom line is, regardless of what the left thinks, regardless of what our opponents think, it's irrelevant. It is our right to keep and bear arms, and there is nothing to come in the way of that. And as long as you stand for it, you will retain it. So thank you very much for coming out today. Enjoy the rest of your Friday. Remember Patriots Day. It's an important day in American history. And God bless. Thanks for coming out.